Yes, guys, we're back with part two of old gen versus new gen prime for prime. Who wins? As you guys can see here, we've got George St. Pierre versus Bilal Muhammad. And guys, do we really need to do a breakdown about this one? But we will. First of all, you can't compare the two resumes. One became a two-weight champion as well. And, I just think GSP is levels above a lot of these welterweights, man. Like, skill for skill, even IQ wise, I think George St. Pierre was levels ahead of these guys. And plus his team. He had a very good team that helped with the preparation of all his fights. So, you see what it is with Bilal. He has a good fighting style in the sense of that, he's going to be in your face. He's going to constantly take you down. He's going to mix it up on the feet, throw punches. I mean, he's essentially a mixed martial artist. He mixes everything up. But I just think George St. Pierre would have an answer for every single thing that Bilal would have. I think on the feet, GSP would piece him up. And I do think I feel like on the ground, if Bilal was able to get GSP to the ground, I honestly do think GSP would be able to reverse the position and get a submission. I just don't see how Bilal could beat GSP at all. Like in his prime, yeah, I don't see how GSP loses to Bilal. So that one's quite easy for me. I'm picking Bilal to win that one, man. Bilal, Jesus Christ. I cannot believe that came out of my mouth. I'm picking GSP. Forgive me, GSP, man. I didn't mean to say that, homie. You know what I mean? I'm picking GSP to win, man. Fuck Bilal. But next up, we got... Okay, why is it not sliding? Okay, next up, we got Anderson Silva versus Dricus du Plessis. And in their prime, yeah, it's interesting because I do feel like Anderson Silva would beat him. But you see with Dricus, it's even when he fought Izzy was winning that fight up until that point. Don't get me wrong, Izzy made a lot of mistakes in that fight. That even turning his back while Dracus is, trying to hit him. So he essentially gave the fight to DDP. But one thing I have to commend DDP for is just the sheer heart. Like, I know his technique is not the greatest, but his heart, man, like his desire to fight till the end is what wins him fights. And you see what a lot of people don't understand. You see when it comes to fighting, yeah, sometimes technique and all of that shit goes out the window. And sometimes it's just down to who's willing to bite down on that mouthpiece and give their all. Like, and sometimes it comes down to who's willing to die. Like, who's literally willing to die in that octagon. And in a lot of situations when it comes to fighting, whether that's MMA or boxing, sometimes it's just the guy who wants it that bit more that gets the win. And I want to go with Anderson Silva because of the skill set. I mean, Anderson Silva's skill set is levels above Dricus du Plessis. And obviously, if we're going to compare the resumes, Anderson Silva's is better. But DDP's resume so far is quite good as well, so I can't knock him for that. Guys, this is controversial, yeah, because I actually want to say Anderson Silva. But, like, if you can't knock out DDP, he's just going to keep coming and he's going to be in your face. And, like I see something Yoel Romero said, yeah, about Dricus du Plessis. Like, for example, when du Plessis took down Israel Adesanya at the end, when he finished the fight, in which there was no technique, it was just brutal strength, like, literally. And he does seem like a strong guy, man. All right, cool, this is what I'm going to say, yeah. Standing up, I think Anderson Silva would piece him up. And it's mad that I'm even saying that, DDP has a chance to win because, like, if we're looking at the skill set, Anderson Silva is levels above. But, guys, I feel like Anderson Silva would piece DDP up on the feet. But guess what? I think DDP is just going to think, fuck this. try drag him down with just pure African strength and keep him there and probably try to submit him. And I do feel like if Dricus du Plessis was to get Anderson Silva's back, I do think he could finish him. I do think Dricus du Plessis could finish a lot of guys if he takes them down and goes for a submission. That's why the fight with him and Chimaev is going to be very interesting. I'm not going to talk too much about that on this video because I plan to do a little video for all that. But yeah, guys, I want to pick Anderson Silva. I do. And I know this is going to cause some uproar in the comments. But like I said, man, you see me, I'm a very open-minded person, especially when it comes to fighting. So I can see how DDP could win. And I can also see how Anderson Silva could win. He could definitely finish DDP on the feet. But I don't think Anderson Silva has that one-punch KO power like Israel Adesanya. I don't necessarily think Izzy has that one-punch KO power. But he can piece you up and get to the KO. But yeah, guys, I'm going to have to go with DDP, man, just because of the heart, the bravery, the heart, and the sheer willingness to go that extra mile and die in that octagon. So I'm going to have to go with DDP, guys. And it's got nothing to do with skill set. We're talking prime for prime. You know, DDP's in his prime right now. And he has the heart and the desire to die in that octagon. So I'm going to have to go with DDP. And I'm going to say he would get it done by a submission, guys. That's just my opinion. We move on. We have... we have Daniel Cormier versus Magomed Ankalaev, and I'm going to be honest, guys, DC was a very good fighter. I feel like he was quite underrated. Not underrated, I don't think he was appreciated as much. Even me, I didn't really, watch a lot of DC fights, and I didn't really think he was that much of a fighter. But now, as I've gotten older and I look back at some of his fights, DC was the real deal, man. He was the real deal. He had good stand-up. He was good at mixing in the stand-up with the takedowns. And I do feel like if he was to fight Magomed Ankalaev, I do think he would have his way. I think he would, he would probably have a bit of problem getting past the range. Actually, I don't think he would have a problem getting past the range of Ankalaev. I think he would be able to deal with that quite easily. And I do think he would take Magomed Ankalaev down and probably beat him up there. I don't even think this fight would be close. Listen, this era of the light heavyweight division is completely different to the era of when Daniel Cormier and John Jones were there. So I don't if you look at Daniel Cormier's resume and Magomed Ankalaev, I don't think you can compare them. And DC went up to heavyweight. And he fought Jones twice. I think the first fight was a decision win for Jones. So that just shows you that DC is a game opponent. Obviously, Magomed Ankalaev beat Alex Pereira recently, but when you look at the actual skill set of DC and Alex Pereira, you can't compare the two. Alex is better at striking, but Daniel Cormier is a better, well-rounded mixed martial artist. And then we look at John Jones, when he fought DC. You actually cannot compare DC prime for prime with Magomed Ankalaev. I think that is just an absolute disrespect, and that's just my opinion. I don't think they're even in the same category. I think DC is levels above. Magomed Ankalaev is a good fighter, don't get me wrong, but I don't think you can put him and DC in the same bracket, and that's just me being completely honest. So I think DC would quite easily wipe the floor with Magomed Ankalaev. Don't get me wrong, Ankalaev can wrestle as well, and he has decent stand-up, but I just think DC is the better fighter. And in their prime, I do think DC would have its way with Ankalaev. I think it would be a decent fight on standing up. I do think, because DC did have good takedown entries, so I think DC would be able to get a good takedown, keep him there, get some good ground and pound off and finish him, if I'm being completely honest. So I'm picking DC. Like I said, guys, if you compare their resumes and their errors, you cannot really compare. In my opinion, this current version of the light heavyweight division is probably not the worst, but I don't think it was necessarily as good as when DC and John Jones were there. Don't get me wrong. Right now we got Ankalaev, Alex Pereira, what's his name? Yuri Prohatska, Khalil Roundtree, and Olberg. Other than that, come on, guys. You know what I mean? So I'm picking DC all day long. I don't give a shit. Anyone that says Magomed Ankalaev in the comments, you need to go and get your eyes and your brain tested, because he does not miss this DC in any universe. Any multiverse you want to think of, he does not beat him. We move on. Next up, we have, well, this is the last one in the slide. We have Francis Ngannou versus Tom Aspinall. Guys, this here would be a very, very interesting fight, because we all know all either fighter needs is one. It needs to land one shot. But if we're talking power, I'm going to lead more towards Francis Ngannou. If we're talking power and technique, I'm going to lead more towards Tom Aspinall. And if we're looking at both the skill sets, Tom Aspinall's skill set is better than Francis's skill set. Levels above. You can't compare the two. Even the way Francis was throwing his shots, I don't know, maybe he's a bit different now, but when I've seen a lot of Francis's MMA fights, he just swings because he knows he's got power. He's not scared. You know, he's come from where he's come from, so he's brave. He doesn't really care. But Tom Aspinall has the better skill set. But I'm gonna be honest, guys. Yeah, this fight, I don't think technique or any of that would necessarily matter, because I do think Francis is just a specimen. I think he's very, very strong and he hits hard, and I do think Francis just needs one. This is gonna sound mad, but I still think even now, even though Francis is not in his prime, I still think, this is gonna sound crazy, guys, I still think this is a harder fight for Tom Aspinall than Tom versus John Jones. That's just my opinion, guys. Because I do feel like there's ways I can see John Jones winning, but I've always said I don't think John Jones should have anything to do with Tom Aspinall. It's a very, very dangerous fight for him. And if there's anybody that can knock out John Jones, it is Tom Aspinall and Francis Ngannou. I'm not going to lie. Those are the two guys. So, yeah. The fight would be interesting because I do feel like Francis Ngannou would probably just think, fuck it, I'm going to try and go in there and take this guy out. And guys, I know Tom Aspinall can wrestle, but you want me to be completely honest, I do feel like the only way Tom Aspinall could actually beat Ngannou is if Francis loads up like he always does and throws them looping shots, and Tom Aspinall, in the midst of that madness, he times and picks, because timing beats speed and precision beats power. So I do feel like if Tom Aspinall was able to get the timing right in the midst of all of that chaos, I do think he could finish Francis Ngannou. But at the same time, I do think if Francis was to land in that madness, which I do think he would land, I do think he puts Tom Aspinall to sleep. So it's definitely a 50-50 fight. Obviously, it depends. I feel like in a fight like this, yeah, in most fights, yeah, but especially in a fight like this, I think it will all come down. It would all come down to who can get on the front foot. The guy who gets on the front foot wins the fight. Obviously, the guy like Tom, if he gets on the front foot, I feel like he will beat most guys because his skill set. Like, the guy used to box as well, so he knows what he's doing. But yeah, I think for him fighting someone like Francis, it would be very, very important for him to be on the front foot. I don't think, especially in a cage, you can't get backed up by someone like Francis, man, because when he starts throwing them looping shots, there's nowhere for you to run or slip shots. But guys, I'm gonna have to go with Francis Ngannou, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Francis's fighting style. I do think he is a terrible. Honestly, his striking is terrible, absolutely terrible. But because Ngannou is gonna come in and, you know, essentially just crash, you know, I'm gonna have to give it to Ngannou. But if we're talking actual skill set, Tom Aspinall's skill set is better. But at the same time, I still feel like Tom needs to prove himself because the level of opponents that he has fought so far is not really, all that. I mean, he fought Sergey Pavlovich to actually get the belt. He fought Curtis Blades. But Curtis Blades ain't even, respectfully, he's nothing special. So, But yeah, Tom, very good fighter. He is the better fighter out of the two, out of him and Francis. It's just, listen, I have to respect Francis's power and his willingness to just, cause absolute. Listen, he's a true African warrior. He doesn't care. He's come from a very hard background, so he doesn't care. He'll crash. You know how Khabib and that say, "Who cares, brother? Tonight we smash." He says, "Who cares, brother? Tonight we crash." That's what we go do. So I'm not gonna lie, guys. I'm gonna stick with my African brother, Francis Ngannou, and I'm gonna pick him. I just think he would create chaos and land the killer blow. But like I said, in the midst of that madness, Tom Aspinall could definitely land and put him to sleep. And if we're talking all-round skill set, Tom Aspinall is the better fighter all day long. I'm not gonna sit here and try and make it seem like Francis is the better fighter. It's just obviously styles make fights. And I do think Francis, out of everybody, does have the biggest chance of beating Tom Aspinall because he has the power and he's going to create chaos and he's willing to get to that place of chaos. So I'm picking Francis Ngannou to win that, guys. That is part 2. If you want to see another video like this where I compare fighters, old gen versus new gen, prime for prime, it doesn't have to be champions or ex-champions, just, interesting matchups. Maybe fights we never got to see. I might even do a video like that because that would be quite good. But yeah, like and subscribe, guys. Please comment below. Please hit the subscribe button. It's Big Yems in a bit, man.